Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Barrett, and I am the managing editor for the Greene County Messenger. On behalf of the Messenger and its sister newspapers, the Herald-Standard and the Mon Valley Herald-Standard, I welcome each and every one of you to this debate between the two candidates vying for the seat of representative for Pennsylvania's 50th Legislative District. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize several people from the Central Greene School District who have been most kind in helping us put this forum together this evening. Central Greene School District Superintendent Brian Uplinger, Waynesburg Central High School Principal Bob Stevenson, and Assistant Principal Justin Stevenson, and Instructor Brianna Brickner. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Mr. Christopher Whitlatch, Mon Valley Alliance Chief Executive Officer. The MVA, created in April, is the consolidation of the Mon Valley Progress Council and the Middle Monongahela Industrial Development Association. A 1991 graduate of Uniontown Area High School and a New York University graduate, Mr. Whitlatch spent several years with the Pittsburgh Foundation, where he helped develop and launch Pittsburgh Gives, an online giving platform that raised more than $40 million for nonprofit organizations. In addition to hosting the nonprofit news magazine show Into Pittsburgh, Whitlatch serves on various boards and volunteers his time for other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Christopher Whitlatch.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see so many people out in the audience tonight, and it's my pleasure to serve as moderator for this event. On behalf of the Greene County Messenger, the Herald-Standard, the Mon Valley Alliance, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us tonight. You're playing an important role in our democracy, and as we approach this upcoming election, this is an excellent opportunity to hear from your candidates on important issues impacting our community. I ask that you please silence your phone at this time. Is there any additional questions that we have not collected at this point? If so, if you could raise them up, someone will collect them from you, and we will try to get to as many audience questions as we can. Applause or audience comment is prohibited tonight, so please hold that. We're on a tight time schedule tonight. And no signage is permitted in the venue. Thank you. And now, please welcome your candidates for the 50th Legislative District. Your incumbent is Democrat Pam Snyder. Ms. Snyder was first elected to state office in 2012 after serving 9 years as a Greene County Commissioner and is seeking a third term in the House of Representatives. A proponent of the coal and natural gas industries during her first term, Ms. Snyder sponsored and led the passage of legislation that requires the State Department of Environmental Protection to receive approval from the state for the regulation of carbon dioxide emissions. In 2014, Ms. Snyder was one of 4 lawmakers named to the legislative task force charged with investigating the opiate prescription drug abuse in the state. The Joint State Government Commission's task force produced recommendations that are now being implemented across the state. And now your challenger is Republican Betsy Rohanna McClure. Ms. McClure is a Trinity School District nurse and community leader and is a first-time candidate. A Greene County native, Ms. McClure earned her nursing degree from Waynesburg College, an education master's degree from California University of Pennsylvania. She has served as a case manager for Albert Gallatin Hospice and Washington Hospital. In addition to teaching college and vocational technical nursing classes, Ms. McClure is a member of the Greene County Historical Society, Pennsylvania State Education Association, and VFW Local 4793, among others. Welcome. Candidates, I'll remind you of the rules for tonight's event. This is a round-robin format, and it will be used for all questioning the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the question and 1 minute to answer any follow-up questions. Editorial board questions will be asked in advance of audience questions, and repetitive questions will not be asked tonight. And personal attacks will not be tolerated. And we'll start with Ms. Snyder for the first question. This summer, first responders, healthcare representatives, and others advised lawmakers that the opioid crisis had escalated to pandemic levels. Paramedics are responding to about 5 overdoses every day. Multiple babies are being born to drug-addicted mothers, and some suffer from drug withdrawal. Governor Wolf has called for measures that would limit emergency room doctors from prescribing more than 7 days of narcotics and mandate physicians check a new online database of patients' drug histories before a new prescription is issued or renewed. Describe what is taking place in your district. What do you think of Wolf's measures, and should there be others?
Thank you. Start here. Thank you, Chris. That's a really important question. The drug problem is extremely serious, not just in the 50th district, but all across this country. I was one of 4 out of 203 members that was chosen to serve on the opioid task force. And some of the legislation that has come forth came out of the work that we did on that task force. But we have a lot more to do. It's about education, prevention, and treatment. I went into every school district in my district, there are 7 of them in the spring with the Attorney General's office, to speak to middle school children, to let them understand and see the importance of making good choices, of turning their backs and being leaders instead of followers. When I was a teenager, Mom and Dad used to lock up the liquor cabinets, but now we need Mom and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa to lock up the medicine cabinets, because you ask any heroin addict if that's the first drug they ever used, and the answer is always going to be no. It starts with alcohol, marijuana, and then they get into the medicine cabinet and they get the prescription drugs. And when they can't get them and afford them on the street, that's when they turn to heroin. This statistic alone can show you how critical this is. The United States of America comprises 5% of the world's population, and we consume 80% of the world's opioids. That says it all. There is no magical piece of legislation that's going to fix this. The drug database bill that we have passed and now has been enacted, I believe is going to help immensely. Doctors and pharmacists will be able to see and tell if that person has a problem, and then they will be able to get them into treatment. So we need to continue to all work together. It's about our communities. It's about our kids. We need to educate our kids, make sure we have prevention, and make sure for those that faltered, there's treatment for them. Thank you.
Ms. McClure.
Thank you. This drug epidemic that we're facing today is extremely serious. I am a nurse. I am a school nurse. I am on the front lines with this. My approach for this drug epidemic is, first of all, we need jobs and opportunities. If we can have opportunities, we can hopefully get people to be going into opportunities, staying away from drugs. But then we need to have 3 steps. We do need to have education, and we need to start in the elementary. We can't wait until they're in high school. It's too late. Secondly, we need treatment. And treatment needs to be outcome-based. There need to be markers. If a person is not progressing in treatment, that clinic needs to be accountable. They need to be saying, maybe we need to look at long-term placement. This coming to the clinic is not working for you. Because when somebody is dope sick, take the flu times 10. That's how ill they are. And if it is an illness, then we need to treat it as such. And in illnesses, you do have outcomes. And third, we need law and order. You know, like I said, I work in a school. We were one of the first schools to get Narcan. And with Narcan, I never want to lose anybody to a drug overdose. But what I don't want to do is give Narcan today, tomorrow, and next week. And if you talk to our first responders, that's what they're doing. And I feel that there needs to be a consequence, because if it's one thing I know with working with the youth, is that if you don't have a consequence for a negative behavior, no learning takes place. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question from the audience for both of you for this particular question. And that question is, how do you feel about methadone clinics on our main streets? Ms. Snyder.
I'm deeply concerned about methadone clinics right on Main Street. I know there's been an issue in Waynesburg with a couple of Suboxone clinics that have opened their doors. You know, we need clinics that have the treatment affiliated with them. You know, I sat through the town hall last week that Judge Toothman had, and the reality is, if you are a drug addict, you are not going to be cured in 20 days. It takes long-term treatment, and that's the kind of clinics we should be trying to enforce and have in our communities. Yes, some addicts need methadone to help them get off of the heroin, but they also must have the treatment that goes along with it so that that is sustainable for the rest of their life.
Thank you. Ms. McClure.
I feel that when, as I said before, when you have an addiction, yes, we need treatment. I'm a nurse. However, these clinics need to be outcome-based and accountable. What we're finding is that people going to these clinics, they're going for 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years. Then we're finding these drugs on the street. So you're taking an illegal substance and substituting with a legal substance. Yes, some people going to the clinics, but again, they need to be accountable. If at some point it's not working, then who's accountable for that? Do we wait until there's an accident? Or do we need to hold these clinics that once you sign that patient on, and that is your client, then you need to be accountable. You need to be watching them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McClure, our second question starts with you. Yes. Despite years and years and years of discussions and unfulfilled promises to consider alternatives, we continue to pay property taxes. For the local school district, it is a large percentage of its budget revenue. What is your stance on the property tax issue? What is your solution to reduce and or eliminate property taxes?
This is a very good question. As I've been campaigning, I've been out in the community, and I've been talking with a lot of seniors. Property tax is hard for those that are elderly on a fixed income. I certainly would be for the elimination of property tax, but in eliminating that, where do we get the money to fund our schools? That's very important that when we look at these dollars, which it's roughly $13 billion to fund our schools, where does this money come from? You have property tax dollars here, and if you eliminate that, where does that shift to? As in all legislation, the devil is in the details. I would have to look at those details and be sure that with elimination of property tax, where is that going to come up at? Because we can't have our other taxes rising. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder.
You can't talk about property tax reform without talking about education funding. None of us like to pay our school property taxes, but we have children that we need to educate. Let's be real. Our public education system is the backbone of this nation. It is the very fabric of why we're all here today. Property taxes have got to be reduced. There's no question about it. There have been bills before the House that would eliminate property taxes and put it all on the sales and use tax. The maker of the bill stood on the House floor and said, "Please vote for my bill, even though I know it doesn't add up." Well, if it doesn't add up, that's not good enough. We have to have a sustainable source of revenue to be able to fund our public education system and take the burden off the property tax owners. We have increased senior citizens property tax rent rebate amounts, which has opened it up for thousands of senior citizens to qualify to get money back on their property taxes. We also need to keep in mind, property taxes go down when development goes up. So we need to invest in our water lines, our sewage lines, our internet broadband, which I am taking on that issue right now. We have got to have development to build up our tax base, and we've got to have a sustainable plan to reduce property taxes. I was one of 9 Democrats that voted against a proposal last October 6th for a severance tax and a personal income tax increase. And the money was going to go to public education. And I am all about funding our schools. But I was not going to vote yes to take more money out of working people's paychecks when there was no property tax relief attached to it. It has to be the right mix to make sure our schools are funded, and I believe it can be done. If we could just get the people in Harrisburg, the leadership, to get in a room and figure it out. It can be done, it must be done, and it should be done. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, both candidates have mentioned education funding tied to property taxes, and a young audience member also echoed that concern when she posed a question on how do you plan to address public school funding. So our editorial board, and I think this young audience member might be a part of that in the future, poses this question to you. While Pennsylvania recently passed a statewide funding formula to more equitably distribute funds across school districts, the current budget will prevent schools from making important long-term investments to improve student performance and address structural inequities. Smaller class sizes, more robust early childhood education, teacher development, arts programming, and after-school activities in schools are all correlated to better student achievement and student outcomes. Increased funding is necessary to provide such resources to Pennsylvania's most vulnerable students and close achievement gaps. Do you believe education funding should be increased? If so, where would the increased funding come from? If you believe that education funding should not be increased, what measures should be taken to improve the system as a whole? Ms. McClure.
I would never vote to cut school funding. I think education is extremely important, but if we raise it, school funding, where would that come from? An increase in our taxes? I work in a school. I feel teachers are very smart. They care about what they do. And I think they need autonomy. Currently, we spend roughly a little over $15,000 per student in our education system. I think that if we allow districts to develop their curriculum, then they're going to be able to spend those dollars wisely. Again, I would never vote to cut taxes. That's hard for them when they're on fixed income. And then you look at what's going on in our communities. We have a lot of people moving out. We've lost a lot of jobs. And when you have less people that are paying the property tax, it affects all of us when we don't have jobs. So I think that if we could work on bringing jobs to the area, then we're going to have more people here to help with the burden of the tax, and particularly property tax, until, as legislators, we can find a way. Thank you.
Would you like to finish that statement?
And unless, as legislators, we can find a way to decrease the property tax and still continue funding our education system adequately. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder.
I don't think the state pays their fair share for our public education system. I think they have been negligent in that for many years, and I think we should pay more. And there are ways we could raise revenue. There's a proposal on the table to close the Delaware loophole, and we should do that. 30% of the businesses in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania pay 100% of the corporate net income tax, because small businesses can't afford to have tax avoidance attorneys show them how to shelter their businesses so that they don't have to pay the corporate net income tax in Pennsylvania. If we were to close that loophole, it would generate $900 million. Right now, that percentage is at 9.99% that they pay. We're the second highest in the country. If we were to close it and lower it to the proposal that this administration has asked for, it would go down to 4.99%. We would be one of the 5 lowest in the country, and it could generate up to $900 million. That money could be used by the state to pay our fair share into the public education system. Thank you.
Thank you. The following question was echoed by many people in the audience tonight. Candidates for public office oftentimes promise that they will not accept per diems for travel, meals, or overnight stays, or allocations to their pension fund from the state, although they are entitled by law to do so. Ms. Snyder, have you been reimbursed for those expenditures during your tenure? Are you enrolled in the state pension fund?
Yes, on both questions, and I'm sure most of you have seen the mailers and the TV ads saying for 4 years, I am a state as a school nurse pension, not here. I marched from Waynesburg to D.C. with the and expenses. I wish I didn't have to be. I have colleagues who get to go home every night when they leave the Capitol because they live close enough to the Capitol. I would love to be able to do that and go home to my family every night. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McClure, do you plan to take advantage of the per diem program or enroll in the state pension fund if elected? Why or why not?
Thank you for that question. And I would like to address that I understand that Pam is not happy with my flyers, but everything that is on that flyer is the fact. It's the truth. Now, no, I am not accepting. And if
please.
No, I am not accepting a political pension. The pension that the legislators have is the same pension that our state police have, that they have, which is payer paid to that. The day between 180 and 100 only put in for what it costs me, and the rest I will not. That money can be used in our community to educate our children.
Thank you, Ms. McClure. Ms. Snyder, I will give you 1 minute to follow up on that, but I'd also ask that you address the question of, are there any changes to the benefit that you would support?
I would support any change to the benefit. I didn't write the laws, and I certainly have never, in my career as a county commissioner or a state representative, ever voted myself a pay raise or an increase in a pension. And like I said earlier, I certainly am not doing this job for any pension. I do this job because I care about the people. I am sorry. I do want to take the high road, and I have. But what she has said on her flyers isn't true. Meals and my travel. My district or in Western Pennsylvania because I refuse to, she said.
Ms. McClure, please hold your applause. Please hold your applause. Please hold your applause. Thank you. Ms. McClure, I'll give you 1 minute to follow up as well, and please address what changes you would make to that program.
Yes. There are many legislators near us in Fayette, in Washington, that do not take per diems, and they are not taking the pension. That is something as a legislator that you can make a choice. I am going to choose to lead by example. I can't ask us to do more with less if I'm not willing to do it myself. And once I am a legislator, I would work to sponsor a bill that would take the per diems, that would eliminate those per diems. So I think, again, we need to lead by example. I think that our school districts are hurting. You know, I think that our communities, there's a lot of people unemployed. And when you take the perks and the mileage, you're taking perks, mileage. Is that double dipping, triple dipping?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please hold your applause. Thank you. Many issues are being discussed this evening. To accomplish anything to make a difference, Democrats and Republicans must find common ground. As the challenger, Ms. McClure, what traits do you have that will allow you to work with other party members if elected?
Well, I have to say in my profession, I have worked in hospitals and home care agencies and never at my patients or I would be as a Zen
to fix your problem, to help you find what you need. I was one of 13 Democrats that after a terrible budget impasse, a budget debacle, broke ranks with the Democrats, stood up to Tom Wolf, and voted with the Republicans to end the budget impasse because I was not going to stand by and watch my schools close. I also made a personal decision during that time. I did not cash a paycheck for 6 months. If my school districts and my human services departments were not being funded, I decided I would feel the pain with them, and I did. And by the time that vote came to end that budget debacle, I was proud to break ranks and do what was right for the people of the 50th District, because that's what I always do. I do what's right for my district. I don't do what's popular. I was a freshman legislator, one of 203 in the minority party who was able to get a very controversial piece of legislation passed by working with both sides on the Clean Power Plan to ensure that our coal miners continue to have jobs, that our electricity rates are not going to go through the roof, to make sure that DEP wasn't able to just send a plan to the feds that nobody was going to have a voice on. My legislation makes sure that the General Assembly is able to weigh in on that before that plan goes to the federal government. And I am proud because my legislation was adopted word for word by 25 other states in this country. So I have always worked in a bipartisan fashion, and I will continue to, because that's the problem in Harrisburg. We must come to the middle. Too many far to the right and too many far to the left. It's got to come to the center for the good of the people.
Thank you.
May I rebuttal?
Yes. No, I'm getting a no. Candidates, 2 state lawmakers have introduced legislation that would require state high school students to be tested on their knowledge of basic American history and civics before graduating. The 100-question test would be from the U.S. Citizenship Civics Test that all immigrants must pass when applying for U.S. citizenship. And you're expecting me to ask a question of the candidates, but since you've been such a participatory audience already, these come to you. You could shout out the answer. This is question number 7 from that test. How many amendments does the Constitution have? 27, good. Question number 42. Under our Constitution, some powers belong to the states. What is one power of the states? Keep going. Yeah, I think that you're on the right track there. So it's provide protection, provide safety, that's police and fire, give a driver's license, approve zoning and land uses, and provide schooling and education. Very hot topic for tonight. Last question for you. Number 58 from the test. What is one reason colonists came to America? Freedom, number 1 answer. So our audience is pretty good here. So candidates, my question to you, and we'll start with Ms. McClure, is will you support this legislation? Why or why not?
Could you support the legislation
to test our high school students on basic American history and civics.
I would not be in favor of another standardized test. I would be in favor of civics courses and testing that goes along with that, but not for another standardized test. Anyone who is coming into our country and wants to become an American citizen, yes, I think they need to be tested on that. And I think that our schools, again, our public education, does a great job with teaching our students. So I'm not in favor of a standardized test. But also, I want to say that when Mrs. Snyder was talking about the budget impasse for 9 months, there were 3 times that she did not pass, the budget. And so therefore...
Audience, hold. She has time.
Therefore, it was a hardship to our school districts and to our county services, and they had to go and borrow money.
Please allow the candidate to speak.
That is a concern that we have. So, thank you.
Ms. Snyder.
I'm very familiar with this legislation because actually the prime sponsor is Representative Quartz, and he and I share an office and a legislative assistant in Harrisburg. I believe that we should let our teachers teach. Nobody knows better what our students need than they do. We have tested our kids to death, and I think it's ludicrous that we put this burden on our students and that we put this on our teachers, and that we have to judge our teachers by how children score on tests. It's crazy. Yes, I think we should teach civics, absolutely. Our children should know everything they can about our country, but I do not think they should have to. I have to disagree with my own Democrat colleague here. I do not think it should be a criteria for graduation that they have to pass another examination. And I do believe that the immigration law as it stands and the testing to become an immigrant works, and it should stay as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question for both candidates. Ms. McClure, I believe you both advocated for this. You would hold people coming to the country, becoming a U.S. citizen, to a higher standard than our own citizens. Could you address that in a minute?
I feel that people coming into our country need to know how our government system works. They obviously want to come here because they feel that we do have a better way of living, and they want to become part of that system. And I think that they need to be educated on how our process, on how our democracy works. So yes, I think that they should be tested. I think that, again, that our citizens in public education, that I think that we are teaching those things. I also think that to have a refresher course as they go along, especially when they get at the high school level and they're going to be of the age of voting and getting out and paying taxes and getting a paycheck and understanding all that, I think that's very important. So yes, I think coming here, like you were saying, as somebody wanting to become an American citizen, they do need to have testing on that. And I feel that our schools could include a civics class, a course, and work with our children in our American children in that respect.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder.
Chris, I really couldn't hear exactly. Did you say hold them to a different standard?
Yes.
Both sets of my grandparents came to this country to find a better life. And here I sit as a state representative. They certainly would have never fathomed that could happen. They would have done anything to be American citizens. And I think the immigration policy that we have in place allows people to have the American dream, allows them to have a better life. And I think the system that's in place works. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go to an audience question next, submitted by 2 different people. Over the last few decades, there have been multiple attempts to diminish the power of those who wish to collectively bargain. What is your stance on right-to-work legislation? And also, please describe your experience with unions. Ms. Snyder.
I would never vote yes on right-to-work. I believe in labor unions. I believe in the collective bargaining system.
Please hold your applause.
My husband and I raised our family on what he did for a living, not what I did. I actually stayed home for 10 years after we got married. I was a stay-at-home mom. He was a lineman for 34 years for the power company, a proud member of the Utility Workers Union of America. I believe in labor unions. They built the middle class in this country, and the assault that I see on them every day in Harrisburg sickens me. And that's why we need people like me in Harrisburg making sure that unions continue to have a voice. So I would never, never vote for right to work. Thank you.
Please hold your applause. Ms. McClure.
I think that for those of you who don't know me, I am a nurse. I am a school nurse. I am a PSEA 20 years plus dues paying member, and I am proud of that. But I also think, as an American citizen, that we should have rights. So I feel that when you're looking at legislation, I feel people should have right to say if they want to be in a union or not. I obviously am a union member, and I made that choice. I wasn't coerced. Nobody twisted my arm. I did it because I wanted to be a part of that bargaining unit. And I believe that as an American citizen, that we should have that right. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to address blight quickly. Blight hurts communities in many ways. It poses serious health and safety threats and poses a financial burden on communities for code enforcement and maintenance. It reduces property values and tax revenues and makes the community less attractive for new business and new residents. Some of the most impacted communities have historic designations because of their early contribution to the growth of the Commonwealth or nation. But the landmarks are deteriorating at a fast pace. There has long been an argument between those that want to preserve the history and those that believe the old should be torn down to make way for the new. Discuss a specific issue for the district and what you have done or will do at the state level to help those small, struggling communities. Ms. McClure.
Blight is a huge problem. When I think of blight, I think of Hatfield Power Plant. That's industrial blight. I feel that that has been caused by overregulation of government and high taxes. So when you look at industrial blight, you know that without jobs, you're going to have residential blight. And that's in all of our neighborhoods. I know. I've been out knocking on thousands of doors, contacting thousands of voters. So yes, I see that when you have industrial blight, it's going to lead to residential blight. As a state legislator, I would work with any redevelopment authority to bring funds in to work to do away with that blight. But we also, as legislators, need to push back about overregulation that is killing our jobs. It's attacking our coal industry now. We have a lot of coal plants, coal mines. They're closed because of overregulation. So I think as a legislator, and I feel that, you know, our federal government, our Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who my opponent is in favor of, has done this here. And it really concerns me that we need to work towards improving our area. And we need to become more friendly to businesses with the reduction of regulation and taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder. Please hold your applause.
I'm glad she knows what I'm thinking now, too. In regard to Hatfield, let's talk about that for a minute. Nothing was more devastating to Southeastern Green School District in this county than the closure of Hatfield. And nobody did more as an elected official to try to stop that than I did. The 200 workers that lost their jobs, it still makes me sick because I know the investment that Allegheny Power made in that plant. I was a commissioner when they did it, $750 million. We had hearings. We tried to convince Allegheny Power to please give us a chance to make that a clean coal technology plant, a model for the country. I just toured Longview last week. It's the cleanest coal-fired plant in North America. We can do it, and we will continue to do it. But at the hearing that I had when Hatfield closed, Mr. Lash with Allegheny Energy said it didn't have anything to do with the regulations, and most of the workers at Hatfield knew that. It had to do with money in the stockholders' pockets. That's what it was about for them. It was about the bottom line number. And it was also about them having a union contract that they couldn't settle at the time. In regard to blight, I have been working with my communities in the 50th District. Brownsville that has been devastated for decades because one person came in and bought up all the property and then did nothing with it. They are now demolishing buildings, and I know the mayor of Brownsville's here tonight, and I know how hard he's worked. They're demolishing buildings there, and they're building a new senior complex. A new influx of money into Brownsville is going to do tremendous things for that community. Fredericktown, there was a building that just collapsed, and I worked with the fire company and the firemen down there to make sure that building gets cleaned up so that that blight is gone. They have a gas station down there that is the central point when you enter the town. They want it gone. We're working to try to find the funding to clean that up. It has to start at the local level, and the legislature did give local governments the land bank issue so that they can clear the title to some of these properties, take them over, and tear them down and rebuild and get them back on the tax rolls. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidates, I have one final question for you, and then I'll give you 2 minutes to make a closing statement as well. However, this final question is a two-part question. The first part comes from the audience. Why are you a member of your respective political parties? The second part of this question is, in addition to your specific legislative race, voters will cast ballots in several other national and state races, including the presidency. While your vote is a private matter, would you share with us who you will be voting for in the presidential race as well? Ms. Snyder.
I can tell you really easily why I'm a member of the Democrat Party. Because the Democrat Party has always been the party that stands for the working class, for labor unions, for blue-collar jobs, for the infirmed, for our kids. I believe in the middle class. I believe in the American dream, and that's why I'm a Democrat. But I also believe in working together and getting things done, because that's what we're elected to do. Yes, I'm a Democrat, and yes, I have my political views. But once I take that oath of office, you can rest assured, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, and independent. I don't care if you're blue, purple, red, or green. I don't care what color your hair is or how old you are, if you're a man or a woman, or if I can't even tell. I treat everybody the same as their elected official because that's what I take an oath to do, and I take that seriously in my public service. In regard to who I'm voting for president, I'm going to give the same answer here that I gave a Philadelphia Inquirer reporter about a month ago. I talk to people in the 50th District every day, and this subject comes up, and everybody is confused. They're sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of my grandchildren turning on the TV to see the bullying by our national candidates. It's an embarrassment. The whole presidential election has been an embarrassment. It's like watching a bad ping pong match. Today, he did this. Tomorrow, she did that. Next day, he did this. I don't know who I'm going to vote for president. I am an undecided voter right here, right now. I am going to watch the next debate, and I am going to continue to listen to what the candidates have to say. And on Election Day, I will decide who I feel will do the best job for the 50th District. And here's what I know. When John Q. Public has a problem, they're not calling Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump to fix it. They're calling Pam Snyder, their state rep. That's the race I care about.
Thank you. Ms. McClure.
Could you please ask me that question again?
Certainly. From the audience, why are you a member of your respective political party? And from the editorial board, would you, though it is a private matter and you don't have to, would you share who you were voting for president and why?
I am a Republican, and I have been a Republican all my life. I believe in less taxes and freedom. And one of the main reasons that I became so politically active was because of health care, because our government passed the Affordable Care Act, which is about intrusion in almost everything in our lives. I have been an advocate for patients all my life, and because I feel that you live in America, you work in America, we have hardworking men and women, and I believe that they should have a choice in their health care, not that the government is saying that when you become a certain age, you can't have this, or your doctor says, I need this drug, but you have to follow a formula for that. I don't believe in that, and I want to be an advocate as a state representative for all of you. Also, I am going to tell you who I'm going to vote for president. And yes, I do believe that this has been a fiasco, and there are things that are being said, but I'm voting for Donald Trump.
Please hold your applause.
And I'm voting for Donald Trump because he is talking about our issues. You see, I believe that I want to keep our coal industry going, our energy jobs. I am in favor of that. That is what we have here, our coal. I've talked to coal miners. I am the proud mother of a coal miner. And my son takes a lot of pride in what he does.
Please hold your applause.
So, yes, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because he's talking about southwestern Pennsylvania. He's talking about the 50th district. He's talking about keeping our coal jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Ms. McClure, you have 2 minutes to make a final statement.
Well, I am running for state representative for the 50th district. And when I took on this endeavor, I hit the streets because I wanted to know the concerns of this district. And what I'm hearing across this district is that taxes are too high, this very serious drug epidemic, and also that we don't have enough jobs, not good-paying, sustaining jobs. So I'm seeing how these issues are hurting families. In fact, it's hurting our entire community. I'm seeing this. I have knocked on and made contact with over 10,000 voters. I'm very serious about this. I will stand up against career politicians. I will fight for our jobs. I will cut wasteful spending. I'll prioritize things. Because in my medical profession, that's what I've done. We've had, in all of our jobs, we've had to do more with less. So I think that our families are very important, and we need to protect families, and we need to look at safety in our communities. So I am a pro-life candidate, and I also am a strong supporter of our Second Amendment rights. And yes, I am asking for your vote on November the 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Snyder, your closing statement.
Thank you. I want to first thank the Herald-Standard, and I want to thank my opponent for coming here tonight and for bringing us together here so that we can talk about the issues that face the 50th District. When someone, anyone, Republican or Democrat, comes to my office, calls me, emails me, sends me a Facebook inbox, I treat everyone equally. I do everything I can to help them. I understand the frustration that some people have here. I truly do. I've seen grown men sitting in my office crying because corporate America broke their promise to them in their retirement. I've seen moms and dads crying because they lost their child to a heroin overdose. I've had prison guards who are worried about their safety. Everything I do, every single day, is focused on helping make sure that you have a voice in Harrisburg. I've marched with coal miners from Waynesburg to D.C. to save their jobs and their benefits. During the budget impasse, I was one of 13 Democrats that stood up to end it. I have stood up to Tom Corbett and Tom Wolf. And when I leave an event sometimes after a speaking engagement, People will ask me, what political party do you belong to? We can't tell. And you know what? When I'm asked that question, I know I'm doing your job. I know I'm being your voice. I'm proud to be endorsed by the United Mine Workers of America, the National Rifle Association, the PSCA, and I am the co-chair of the House Pro-Life Caucus. I run my campaign the same way I do my job and live my life, through my faith and my family. That is what grounds me, and that is who I am. I have served for 4 years for you with honesty and integrity, and I humbly ask on November 8th that you allow me to continue to be your voice in Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd ask you to thank the candidates, but you already have. But if you'd like to continue thanking them, thank you for your participation tonight to both candidates. And thank you for attending this event as well and your participation. On behalf of the Greene County Messenger, the Herald-Standard, and the Mon Valley Alliance, I bid you a good night. We'll see you at the polls. Drive safe, and thank you.
Thank you.